view it later via a Dropbox link. So, an introduction. So, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank you for attending this presentation on panelling, conservation and restoration of the Queen's Gallery, Kensington Palace. So Doug and I came up with this idea, the UK Wood Committee presentations, in order to share knowledge and bring people together who work in the heritage sector. Hopefully this is going to be the first of many, and we're hoping to get lots of volunteers through who would like to present. The format will be, it's going to be a duration of 1 hour. The presentation approximately lasts 30 minutes. I'm going to try and be a bit snappy with the presentation, so apologies if it feels a little bit rushed, but we will then follow up with Q&As during the presentation and after, and I'll go on to that in a minute. And then we're going to have a catch up and try and finish at 8 o'clock, so it's just a nice prompt 1 hour get together. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Vincent Reed. I'm the owner of Vincent Reed Ltd. Our company is based in Robertsbridge, East Sussex, and we specialise in conserving and restoring joinery in listed buildings. We work predominantly on listed buildings from Grade 2 through to scheduled monuments. Our projects consist of all types of joinery, including panelling, flooring, staircases, etc. Our team of skilled craftsmen carry out work from structural to fine repairs through to polishing and finishing. I've prepared this presentation to share knowledge. The UK is famous for its incredible buildings and wonderful interiors. We are rapidly losing the skills of specialist trades, which in hand puts the future of these buildings in jeopardy. I will explain the various procedures along with methods and techniques used when restoring the panelling in the Queen's Gallery. And this project was completed March this year. Now, you might have to bear with me because one, I'm at home, obviously, and two, we have 2 dogs and we have a 5-year-old. So if it gets a bit noisy, please bear with me. What I'd like to say is if you feel that you can see everybody in the view, you can actually minimize that by going up to the top right-hand corner and minimize, because I'm going to be sharing my screen in a minute. So for those of you who want to do that, please do so. We are going to use the chat function for questions. So I will start the presentation, and then down the bottom of the screen there's a little icon which says chat, and you can actually chat in there and ask a question. And I'm going to stop around about 15 minutes into the presentation, and I'll ask you to come off mute. We have a little Q&A, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the presentation to the end, and then have a Q&A at the end. So I am now going to share my screen with you all. Let's just see if this is, yep, this is the one. Right. So hopefully everybody, you can now see. Okay, Doug, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Well done.
Wonderful. Okay, so we will be covering this presentation, brief history of the Queen's Gallery, a survey and condition report, removal and restoration, and also just touching on the importance of our work in this type of work. So the history, a brief history. Kensington Palace was originally a 2-storey Jacobean mansion built by Sir George Coppin in 1605 in the village of Kensington. The mansion was purchased in 1619 by the Earl of Nottingham and was then known as Nottingham House. William and Mary assumed the throne as joint monarchs in 1689, and they began searching for a residence better suited for the asthmatic William. So this picture is an interpretation by Patrick Faulkner of what he thought Nottingham House would have looked like before it became Kensington Palace. In 1689, William and Mary bought Nottingham House for a grand total of £20,000. They then instructed Sir Christopher Wren to begin an immediate expansion of the house. And in order to save time and money, Wren kept the structure intact and added a 3-storey pavilion at each of the 4 corners. This provided more accommodation for the King and Queen and their attendants. The royal court took residence in the palace shortly before Christmas 1689, And for the next 70 years, Kensington Palace was a favoured residence of British monarchs. Additional improvements soon after included Queen Mary's extension of her apartments by building the Queen's Gallery, and after a fire in 1691, the King's Staircase was rebuilt in marble. Unfortunately, Mary died of smallpox in the palace in 1694, and in 1702, William suffered a fall from his horse, which apparently lost its footing on a molehill in Richmond Park. William was brought back to Kensington Palace, where he died shortly afterwards from pneumonia. And after his death, it was rumoured that his rivals would toast to the little man in the black velvet jacket. This is obviously referring to the little mole that dug the hole that led to William's demise. So we're going to actually jump about 200 years now, so I haven't got time to look at all the other history for the gallery, but we're jumping 200 years, and Queen Victoria moved to Buckingham Palace soon after she became Queen in 1837. And this is the Queen's Gallery circa 1900. Around this time, Queen Victoria opened the apartments to the public, and during this time, there were various royals living at the palace, including her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Louise. And this is the Queen's Gallery circa 2018, and this is prior to the works that we started in November last year. So, in 2019, we teamed up with Hugh Harrison, and Hugh's attending today, so hello Hugh, to carry out a survey and condition report on the joinery in the Queen's Gallery. Historic royal palaces had a major rewiring project planned, and they wanted to understand what space lay behind the panelling, which in turn could be accessed by the M&E contractors, so they could basically feed their cables into the voids. This was a good time also to understand the construction along with the condition of the joinery in this area, and also to access any necessary repairs. So here we have Hugh at the top of the tower, and these towers, if anybody hasn't been on one of these towers, they're a little bit disconcerting. They wobble quite a bit. So Hugh's up here inspecting the cornice, and this is all our equipment in the Queen's Gallery. Now, I found this quite unusual, and what's lovely about presenting to professionals is that somebody may have a good question about this. If you see, we've removed the panel on the right-hand side, and we have plaster. Now, we do know that the panelling was installed in 1691, when the Queen's Gallery was built. So I was just intrigued to find out why that was a plastered wall. Because when we restored in the King's Gallery and the King's Drawing Room a few years ago, it was basically stud work and brickwork. So there's an added expense that's gone to line these walls. So that was just a little bit of curiosity. Here we are, we've moved one of the panels. The panels are approximately 10 foot by 4 foot, and it's only just about a 2-person lift. So they're pretty heavy. And this is us just off with the panel, and there's the bearers on there just to protect the edge of the panel. Now, this is showing the shrinking and splitting of the panels. Oh, sorry, no, I jumped the gun. This is at the back of the panel, and I want to talk in more detail about these bearers across here and the damage that they have caused with this panelling. So we'll jump onto that later on in the restoration process. This is showing this edge of the panel. This is the moulded edge here, and then we have the fielded section of the panel that goes into that moulding. This is typically where you have a glue joint that has, where it's contracted, it's come apart. And then on the right-hand side, it's a similar problem with shrinkage, but here it actually something has broken that edge off. It's probably being secured behind, and that's broken. So that just gives you an idea of the problems faced with the panelling. The true provenance of the panelling in the Queen's Gallery is subject to conjecture. All of the lower dado panels and the mouldings are typical of the late 17th century, and it seems to be original. However, most of the large panels have been replaced at a later date. Although records state that Queen Mary chose to hang embroideries on the wall in this space, there's no evidence has been found of any framework or battening designed to stretch and display any type of fabric wall covering. There is evidence of previous fixings in the rails and the stiles, and there's a possibility that the panels designed with bow-lection mouldings which protrude from the panel were originally installed and subsequently removed to make way for the embroidery. So what we're saying here is that the Wren installed these panels, and then very, very soon after, Queen Mary had a change of heart and said, I want to display all my embroidery, and they all came off, and embroidery went on. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this around a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to point out some of these arrows here. This is, again, typical shrinkage of a panel that is in a centrally heated room. Also, this is showing a later panel, and we decided this is later. If you can see the panel on the left-hand side, this has a different. It's just got a honey colour. It's got a better patina. This is red, very different grain. Also, the mouldings are different. And then here are these quite fascinating holes everywhere. This is on the rails and the stiles, and they go everywhere, all up and down here. So there's something pretty heavyweight has been actually fixed to these rails and stiles. So again, it could be the embroidery. The records do show that there was embroidery hung in this gallery, but we will never know. And this is again showing the original panel down the bottom here, and you can see actually by looking at the bottom of this panel to the larger panel, you can just see that this is it's faded. It's got some lovely honey tones to it, whereas this is definitely more of a Victorian type replacement. Let's go to my next slide here. So straight away, this was very, very obvious, but it wouldn't be if you were about 15 foot away from it. You wouldn't realise that these are different, but they're very, very different. These are the bow-lection mouldings, and on the right-hand side we have a bow-lection moulding which we believe is circa 1898, because Queen Victoria opened the palace in around about 1900 or 1899. So we believe the work went on to smarten the palace up, because it was a little bit of a wreck, and so they smartened the palace up. So we believe that's 1898. On the left-hand side, we have what is believed to be the original bow-lection moulding from Wren's time, 1691. Now, how can we tell? So first of all, if I point my cursor up here, you can see there are some machine marks, and this has been made by a cylindrical cutter. And so that's a telltale sign that has been machine made. When over on the left-hand side, there are no machine marks at all, and this would have been used with a moulding plane. So that's the first telltale sign. Also, you can just see how the different grain, it's red, it's almost got a denser grain to it. It's a different type of oak compared to the style in the middle. You know, very, very different. And also this original panel to the left as well, and this moulding. So this is, you know, this is really interesting, that just showing you the difference between the two, and also the actual profile. We put profile gauges on mouldings just to check the profile and check them against other profiles, and these were different. So they're similar but not quite the same. And also here we can see there are some lovely holes here where the original nails would have been securing this bow-lection moulding in. So that's quite a nice thing. All right, so bear with me. Following Queen Mary's death in 1694, there's a possibility that the panels were reinstated and remained in situ with a clear finish until 1724, at which time William Kent was known to have painted the panels white in an attempt to establish a more fashionable Palladian style, which was favoured over the Baroque style at the time. Examples of which can be viewed in the Privy Chamber in the King's apartments, and remnants of white paint can still be seen here, particularly in the cornice, and also some grain in some isolated areas. So this was, again, this was quite exciting when Hugh and I just discovered this. The palace didn't know anything about this white paint up here. They had records that it had been previously painted, but didn't realise that this existed. So this is great, and I'm just thinking of the absolute the unbelievable job that would have been to remove all of that white paint. Here again, white paint in the grain. So, and this is a picture by James Stefanoff. I've put circa 1830, judging from when he was born and when he died, and I'm putting him around about 30 years old when he painted this. It could be, it's around about that time, but you can see very, very clearly that we have a painted Queen's Gallery. One of the other things that I love, just have a quick water, is when you get behind this woodwork, you can really find the interesting stuff for me is behind everything. With furniture, you know, don't look at a piece of furniture and judge a piece of furniture. Pick it up if you can and look underneath and look at the back, because it gives you a real indication of what's going on. So I really enjoy finding original, so this is original ironware, iron fixing, circa 1690. And what I love about this is that, you know, this is being made by hand, and almost it's a square bar that's then been tapered and then put through like a riveting system, and then this has been literally banged over the top. And they would make each one of these nails by hand, which is astonishing. And I love the fact that somebody has nailed this into that bit of wood and it has not been touched since 1690. And I just love this. And on the right hand side here, there's just a reference of you know, square nails pre-1800. Then we move into the particular rectangular you get with the Victorian period, and then obviously through to the round wire nails we see. So now, so before you move anything, this is the removal process now. Before you move anything, and certainly that has to be reinstated, you must record its position and all of its component parts. This is done by photography and video. We use a low-tack masking tape to number in sequence. So this is what we're doing here. We're just literally taking photos, marking absolutely everything up, so we know exactly how it comes, how it should go back. Now, this is me removing a skirting board. Now, what this is some of this skirting has been on for many years, and it's held in with very rusty nails. And what I'm doing here, I'll zoom in a little bit to show you, is we have a low-tack masking tape. And that's really important to use a low-tack masking tape on precious finishes, because you know, it can literally just pull the finish off. Sometimes, unfortunately, you even get a little bit of pull off with this masking tape, but you know, this is the best option that we have. So we have a low-tack masking tape, and then we use a gaffer tape or a foam back tape on top of this, and sometimes we actually put quite a few layers on. So therefore the woodwork behind is protected with the finish. Then we make softwood wedges, and it's important that it's softwood because we do not want to be damaging the top of this moulding. And these are very sharp wedges, and you literally start in one end and you tap in about 1 millimetre just to get it started. And then you go the entire length, following the entire length of the skirting board, tapping in 1 millimetre. You then return, and then 2 millimetres, 3 millimetres, 4 millimetres, until you literally start evenly pulling this skirting board away from the top. So that's exactly how you do it. And you have to take a lot of time doing it. And we're protected with the front here because it's softwood, and also with the back. Let me just, okay, so here, this is what I've called a flat bar technique. So now we have the moulding around about 5 to possibly 10 millimeters prized away from the top. And this is the same as the skirting board, but this is a different picture. And then what we do is, I use here, this is a flexible filling knife, a metal flexible filler, very, very soft. And I place that up against the moulding, and then I use a flat bar on this side of the moulding. So, yeah, it's probably better you can see it like that. Now, what's important here is not to bruise this top edge. This is really, really important. So there has to be a big enough gap to be able to get the flat bar down, to then lift my hand upwards and literally just start pulling gently, and again going the whole length of the moulding, and just taking time. And what you're listening for is you're listening for noises. Basically, you're listening for any nails that are just being freed up under pressure. So it's a constant listening. I'm very, very careful, and a lot of patience, just slowly going up and down. And then you eventually will literally just remove the top section. You go down, then you go down the sides and the bottom, and then this whole thing, because it's a bow lecture moulding. This is what we call a bow lecture moulding, which is set in with this frame. The panel, it literally just pops off. It just comes out. And this panel I took off. This had not been taken off. So this was an original panel that had not been taken off. The reason we're taking it off again is because you can see here they've cut the plaster away, and they needed to get some wires down. So you know, it's when you remove something like this, it's method statements to Historic England, and they have to be very happy that you're doing the right thing. So what I want to also explain, this is again another picture of the lads with the panel on the ground, is that we make these foam bearers up. Now this is styrofoam on top of softwood, and we glue this with a polyurethane glue, and we sandwich these two together. Now what this is great for is, obviously we're putting this edge down on the ground and not damaging the edge of the panel, but also is that sometimes when you remove these panels, they are very, very delicate, and they can flex. And what you don't want to do is all of your glued sections to make up one panel, you do not want to disturb these at all. So what we actually do, didn't need to do it on this occasion, but what we actually do is use these foam bearers, and we put one on the front. This is while the panel is actually in situ, and we've literally just tilted it forward so we can get a bearer at the back and a bearer at the front, and then we G-clamp the top and G-clamp the bottom, and we literally hold that in place and continue down the panel. So when we actually move the panel and remove it, then it stops all the flex and potential damage. So that's something I just wanted to point out to you as well. So we have, let me have a look here. Great. Okay, so this is the restoration. This is Dave here, taking the panels down and working on it in the actual apartments. This was quite lucky that we were allowed to work in this is in the King's drawing room. We used that as a workshop, which was great because they shut the palace down rather. So this is Dave just taking all the relevant bits off this panel. Over here, we have Heather, who is repairing some very, very small sections. And even when you're really, really careful, this is an architrave that's been taken and removed, you almost certainly get the odd split and damage. You just can't help it with fixings and screws and things like that have been previously put in there. So we always glue these up. Never ever leave them to the end of the project. Glue them up first, so you don't lose those pieces, and that's what Heather is doing here. So this again is I want to now talk about the problem with these secured bearers. So it gives a good example of the reasons why the panels are split in the first place. So you can see here, we have bearers on the back of these panels, and also we have glue blocks, which are joining the panel to the bow lecture moulding. So what is the problem with this? Well, obviously a panel, if you can see me in the image here, a panel has to contract and expand at its own rate because it is made of several sections. These panels are quite large, and they are made of around about 9 different sections that are all glued together. Now, the issue you have is when you start fixing a panel like this, is that when the seasons, when we go through the seasons, the panel contracts, it expands, and something's got to give. Well, this bearer is not going to give. That's in there, and it's screwed. So the panels in the front, they suffer, and they literally will then split and crack. And it's interesting, really, because I believe before the invention of central heating, I think the majority of joinery, you know, UK, I can only speak for the UK or Europe, would have been perfectly happy because it was, when it was designed and made, say in 1690, the moisture content would have been much higher. So the building would have had a higher moisture content and higher humidity. So the panels, you know, I'm just, for the sake of it, saying, you know, if you were to make panels now to go into Kensington Palace, well, it's incredibly dry. It's open to the public. It's going to be, you've got to be around about 10, no more than 12% moisture content for that panel to be happy. Now, back in 1690, I would guess that it's probably going to be more on the maybe 18 or 20. So much higher. And then obviously when central heating came in about 1880, 1890, in a big property like this, this panelling has started to fail. And then what happens is you will have people that incorrectly try to restore the panelling. So this panel has failed because it's shrunk. That makes it very vulnerable. If you push the panelling, it's going to wobble. So what they do is they secure this on the back, and then it makes it even worse because it can't move. So this is what we're trying to do here. Is same as we did in the King's drawing room, is remove this battening and take the panels back to how they were originally designed. So take off the bearers and the glue block and let the panel move and contract and expand and contract and expand. And also you have to bear in mind that Kensington Palace was really run down. It was derelict at one point. It had a lot of bomb damage as well. And it wouldn't have had any heating. So therefore the panels have suffered from high moisture and now open to the public. Some of these panels are about 8%. Some of them are 7%, I think. I mean, they're very, very, very low. So this is part of the big issue with a lot of the houses and properties in the UK and Europe. Whoops, hold your horses. Right, I'm just going to literally pause here and just see if we have any questions. Right, we have a chat. Okay.
Jim had an interesting question, Vincent.
Okay.
He asked, were the older moldings English oak, and were the machine-made moldings imported?
I mean, the original mouldings were definitely Quercus Roba. Whether they were made in the UK or not, or whether the timber was from the UK, I don't know, because I know Jim will be able to answer this. But I do know that a lot of the early joinery that we have in this country, a lot of it did come over. The oak came over from France, and you had obviously. Or the craftsmen coming over as well as the timber. So it will be interesting. But the flooring in the Queen's Gallery, obviously that came from Scandinavia. It's Pinus sylvestris that came over from Scandinavia. So I'm not sure. And what was the bit about the new moulding, Doug?
Whether the machine-made moldings were imported. Oh,
okay. Yeah. Again, I don't know. I would imagine that they would have probably been made. Made up in London because of the opening. That's what I probably think.
Did anybody propose doing any dendro?
Yeah,
the wood?
I did ask that question. I'd love to do some dendro, and it wasn't. They weren't prepared to pay for it.
Yeah. Oh well.
So it's a shame because it should be, you know, should be done.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Doug?
There was just a few comments going back and forth about what it's like to work on a scaffold tower.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Some people think it's okay. Some people think it's a bit sort of worrying.
Yeah.
I've been on a few really tall ones, and when they start waving back and forth, yeah, it can be quite disconcerting.
Absolutely. Right, I will crack on. So this, again, this gives an example of how the panels, the sections are glued together. This is the back of the panel here with a typical split. And then here, we also have two sections that have failed. And what we will do with this is we want to basically keep as much of the width of the panel as possible, and also as much as the original material. But saying that, you actually have to get a very, very good glue joint. And you know, talking about the glue side of things, is that these panels were glued using animal glue, and which is absolutely a godsend, because obviously animal glue will dissolve with hot water. So it means that we can carefully dissolve what we use is a toothbrush and some hot water, and we literally just scrub the back of the joint, and it slowly will come apart. And it's fantastic stuff, because you then can clean the joint, and then you've literally, as it was in day one. Okay, sometimes you get the distortion, so you have to tweak it with a block plane, a really sharp block plane or a smoothing plane, just to get this joint to be really accurate. You're not using any fixing to actually glue this together. You're using just the skill of a person. We call it shooting. I don't know if anybody's heard that term, but that's what we always used to call it when I was an apprentice. It's called shooting. You plane up one side.
Vincent?
Yes.
Vincent, one sec. Maybe you should ask everybody to mute their microphones. We're getting a little bit of audible chit-chat.
Okie dokie. Let me just, shall I mute everybody? If you put your hand up if you want to ask a question, okay? But I'm going to mute everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. That's everybody muted.
Good.
That's better.
Well done.
Okay. Yeah, so regarding the glue, very, very important to use animal glue when we glue these back together. And so it's reversible. So the idea is that if this panel fails in years... No, actually, I can still hear everybody. So I try to put people on mute, but it's not, doesn't seem to...
I think you have to ask everybody to mute themselves.
Yeah, okay. If you can mute yourselves, that would be much appreciated.
Hello, everyone. Could you please mute your microphone? No. No.
Okay. Well, there's not much I can do about that, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I just have to ask again.
Yuri, can you mute yourself? Cassia, Grey Ladies, Dominic.
Maybe not everybody knows how to do it. Tell them it's in the bottom left-hand corner with the microphone symbol.
Yes, it's the bottom left-hand corner for everybody. If you can mute yourself, that would be great.
Apologies, Dan.
There we go.
There we go.
Cassia.
Okay.
Sarah.
Okay, we're nearly there. That's good. Okay. I continue, Doug.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So I was explaining about shooting. This is when you get a smoothing plane and you run up one side, you place the other section to that side, and we use chalk, and we rub chalk on the edge of the edge, and literally then push them together and see where the highlighted spots are, take it away, and then plane the chalk off until the whole length is covered in chalk. So that's shooting, and then you literally use animal glue down this whole length, which is a hot animal glue, and glue it together with cramps. And if you get your joint, you know, if you have a really good joint, that is an incredibly strong joint. So you don't need to have any other fixings whatsoever. They had, which we replicated, they had a sort of a token Hessian strip on the back. So we copied that just to make it a little bit more, just to put it back to how it was, basically. So we have here where we've got an edge. The panel was so narrow. We've actually put an oak edge on the side to make the width, as it didn't stop it falling out of its Bolexian moulding. And then here you can see we've got two sections joined together with a repair, and this is showing this here. Okay. Some of the repairs we do, if we can do a repair from the back, then that's what we do. Because the last thing you want to do is disturb the colour from the front of the panel. So this was a crack in the middle. It didn't go all the way up, so there was no need to actually remove these two sections or unglue these two sections, or dissolve them rather. So what we actually did was use a router to about 2/3 of the depth of the panel and routed in a new oak section here, and then these are pins holding it down. You're then literally just playing that off, and that's a really good way of repairing the back of a panel and keeping all the colour. So even if you've got splits on the front of the panel and they look a bit undesirable, I believe it's really important not to touch that. You know, the panels are old. They're going to have splits and they're going to have cracks. So you know that's a really important thing. You have to just tell the client, sorry, this is what it is. As long as it's structurally sound, it's not going to fall on a member of public. Then you know, leave some of those splits and cracks alone if you don't need to touch them. Now I've got my dog trying to scratch the door and wants to come in. So here we have Dave putting some cross-banded sections. The edges of these panels were really thin. I mean, absolutely, you know, 0.5 of a mil on the edge. They were wafer thin. So, and I don't understand why. I'm not sure. I'd like to get to the bottom of it. But here, Dave is putting some cross-banding sections in on the orientation of the grain here, just to make that stronger. Here's some butterfly repairs in here as well on top of there. So there's really detailed repairs that went on the panel. And what I like about these panels here is, again, it's same in the Kings. Can you see here? There's a groove on every single section. Somebody's taken a moulding plane and they've taken a groove on the middle of each of the boards, which I only can believe that it was an attempt to, you know, to reduce cupping and just to take the stress out of that board. But again, you know, that would be really interesting to just to find out if this was a common practice. Here's our two joints back together with a Hessian strip, and this is just some of the animal glue that we're washing up with water. And that's how it is. That's basically how it is, and that's how it goes back. I haven't, unfortunately, got a picture of the panel, the reverse side of the panel, but it's literally just the panel with the Hessian strips. This is now ready to go back into the Bolexian mouldings and be secured. So one thing that we had to look at was the bearers, although the bearers that they put on in the, say, 1920s, 1940s that we have removed, they did do something. And that something was actually stopping, if somebody pressed on the panel from the front, that would, you know, prevent the panels from just splitting and buckling, basically. So that was probably about the only positive thing. And that's probably why they did it in the first place. Now, we had to then come up with a solution to be able to, if somebody did that again, and bear in mind, even though we've restored these panels, they're very fragile still, to stop that from happening. Now, what was interesting with this is that the panels had shrunk so much that when I zoom in here, you can see on the left-hand side, this dark shadowing here. the actual moulding, this edge of the bowl action moulding, this one is only just clipping the side of this style here. It's literally about 3 mil, 4 mil. So they'd skewed panel pins, believe it or not, 40 mil panel pins to hold this huge panel up, and at an angle, and skewered it into that, which is obviously not sufficient. So we had to come up with you know, a solution for this. Now, first of all, we had to extend the width of the style. So again, it's all about reversibility and what you can do. So a decision was taken to actually put some oak strips down the side, not glue the oak strips in, but literally just fix them in with some screws. About 4 screws, I think, held this in place. So no glue. And then at the back of this, and only at the back of this, we have got some new softwood, which is screwed through the new oak into the softwood. And then this literally will give the panel stability. We know now that when the panel goes back, it will contract and expand and won't have any conflictions from bearers or whatever. And we also know that if somebody does lean on it, that it's going to hit this bearer. These are about 3 or 4 mil off the back of the panel. Every one we did had to be bespoke. They're all not the same. They're all different sizes. So this, again, we had to put a method statement in and run it by English Heritage, Historic England, sorry, and they accepted this, and this is what we have done with 4 of the panels. We only actually restored 4. The others are yet to be restored, probably at a later date. So just get this back again. Oh, sorry, everybody. And there we are, putting the panel back. And I can tell you there's a big sigh of relief when one of these panels goes back, because you have to carry it from our makeshift workshop through the gallery into the and actually put it up. So there, once it's in place, there's a real sigh of relief and everybody's happy. And sorry, my computer's playing. Okay, that's fine. So this is me. We also had the contract of putting in very wide oak flooring throughout the apartments. So this is a new Quercus robur oak floor, and this is an oil, and this is me oiling the floor. And here are our panels reinstated. Where the white pages are, this is our panels back in here. They're a little bit shinier than the rest because we gave them a wax polish. But they're basically reinstated. You know, I just wanted to finish really just to say, you know, the UK and Europe and the rest of the world, you know, we're famous for these incredible buildings and wonderful interiors. And we are rapidly losing the skills of specialist trades, which really, really does put these buildings in jeopardy. And what's been great for me is that if we can do these presentations and meet like this, you know, I'm sure we are going to make a difference in the future of these buildings. So I'd like to thank you very much for, I've got a bit hot here, it's been a bit sticky in this room, but I'd like to thank you very much for listening, and yeah, great, thank you very much, and some more questions and Q&As. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent, Vincent. That's brilliant. Again, really excited to see this happening.